podcast, episode number 68. You're joining myself, Chris, one of your hosts, alongside my wonderful co-host. To my left, your right, my right, your left, the techie teacher. Once again, Mr. Tom joining us for episode 68. How are you doing, Tom? Tom?
I am so sorry, guys. My computer completely just froze then for a minute. Hi, yes.
Welcome to episode 68, the techie teacher himself, Mr. Tom.
Hello. Yes, I am here. Nothing's really changed in my life, but we are, we're edging ever so closer to a nice little episode coming soon, I think.
Oh, get you teasing yourself for that one, are you?
Maybe.
Don't get too excited. It's only a podcast, ladies and gentlemen. And below him, the man of many pixels returns once again, Mr. Ritchie. How are you?
I'm quite good. Can I just point out that Tom stole my joke just then?
What the? I thought you meant the pretending the internet to break. That's usually your joke, isn't it?
No. just before we were about to start recording, it's like episode 60. I went almost nice. And then Tom just steals it for his intro.
Well, that's why you got to. I'd say you got to get there quick, but when you always go after him, it's quite difficult to do anything. But yeah,
if he's scripted before, yeah,
it's scripted before. But obviously, ladies and gentlemen, you are joining us for the Sounds of Stadia podcast, where myself, Chris, Tom, and Richie round up all the Stadia and gaming news for your delight and listening pleasure, or viewing pleasure if you watch us over on YouTube. We are the longest running Stadia podcast this side of Google Maps, so thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to give the video a like and a subscribe down below, and share with your friends, because we are so close to that magic 1K mark, and it'd be great if we could do it sooner rather than later. But massive shout out to everyone who watches, tunes in, listens, and spends time basically dedicating part of their lives to our banter every week talking about Stadia. We've got a great show for you lined up. We're going to be talking about new games coming to Stadia alongside exciting new leaked DLC, and more importantly, all the cloud competition that is heating up for the year of 2021. So we put last year in the shadows behind it. We've deleted it from our servers. We've kicked it from our app stores, and we are moving in full speed into 2021. And we've not really had much time to talk about the competition recently. I think very much the last quarter of last year, gents, has been focused on pretty much all Stadia. It was all guns blazing, full throttle for the last 3 or 4 months. So it'll be nice to peek behind the curtain at what the competition have maybe got in line for 2021, how it stacks up against Stadia. So like we said, we've got a great show lined up for you all. But before we get into all that, just a little bit of housekeeping for the show. Episode 68, like we said, we had a Ember live stream that went live this past Thursday. So if you want to see the three of us join in, play some games on Stadia, we do that every Thursday. You can check that out on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia Games. And you can join us basically setting things on fire, putting fires out, being electrocuted, and hopefully saving a few people. We had an absolute blast of a time playing Ember. It's surprising, gents, we've never played it before Thursday.
Yeah. And, I was actually really surprised by that, because we've had Ember for quite some time at the moment, probably about 2 or 3 months as part of Pro. I'm not sure if it's still available on Pro, but it's definitely a game that I think people shouldn't sleep on. It was a lot of fun. We had some great time with that. I may have trolled Richie a little bit with a certain item within the game. If you want to see what that was, go back and check out that live stream as well. But it was
generally quite funny how he got.
I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from that game later on down the line.
And of course, it's still in early access, so go check that out if you can do now. But yeah, who doesn't like saving innocent people whilst they're on fire? It's a great laugh. And speaking of great laughs, we've been having a great laugh for the last 18 or so months now as we come up, as we head into our 3rd year of Stadia conversations, actually. It's a weird sentence to say, but we recorded in 2019, 2020, and now 2021. So it's been 3 years of Stadia podcasting for us in a weird, clever play on words kind of way. Yeah. Do you feel old yet, gentlemen?
Very.
Our road to 1K, Richie, like I said, 3 years with Stadia podcasting. It's gone by so fast, you'd almost think it was only a year and a half. But here we are, we're on the cusp of 1K, and we just want to say a massive thank you to obviously everyone who watches us and tunes in every week across all the different platforms. But we wanted to really give you a bit of a tease in light of episode 69 being on the horizon, but also on light of us being only a few subs away from that magic 1K mark. From that 1K mark, so what we wanted to do is give you a little bit of a tease as to showcase what we've got lined up. First things first, I think we've got some exciting new shows So our patrons and our fan base have said they wanted us to involve us more in the community a bit more. We've knew about that from day one. It's just finding the time realistically between 3 full-time jobs to dedicate it to it. But we've heard you, we've listened to you, and we're definitely going to make that a thing. So we've got one thing lined up that's going to be community focused. We've got a bit of a refresh on our post show, which we're going to talk about definitely in the coming weeks a little bit more. Obviously that goes live for our patrons as well a little bit early. But we wanted to kind of revitalise the show, and rather than just play video game 20 questions every week, we wanted to make it its own thing. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And of course, we're going to be doing celebration streams, more to do with gaming and stuff. Tom's now settled in his house. We've got big plans for that. Not for the house, we're not doing an extension or any work for you, Tom. But we've got obviously big plans. Now we're all settled into our routines and stuff. We do have things in the pipeline. So thank you again for your beloved support. And just keep your eyes peeled for that 1K. I think there's things like Super Chat on YouTube we get to do as well. Emojis, animations, priority conversation, all that magic.
Things people have asked us for, especially in the live streams, that we just have to say, unfortunately, we don't have enough subscribers to grant you that yet. That's why we're so focused on 1K, because it opens us up to the things that you've been asking us for.
Yeah, certainly does. Yes. And we're not far off. I think it's about 90 at the moment, at the time of recording. So just 90 people. If you have 90 friends out there, just get them all to subscribe and we're all done. If you all go get one person, we'll blast past that 1K mark.
Or they could cheat and just 90 people open a second account and subscribe that way.
Oof. I mean, that's the dirty way of doing it, Richard, but we won't deny them doing that. So we're close. Keep your eyes peeled. We'll probably have more updates in the next couple of weeks as we tick past episode 70 and beyond. But like we've always said from the very beginning, we're always looking to grow. We're always looking to bring you content that you want to see. So just let us know. Drop a comment down below. Messages on Twitter are all over there, so just check us out, hit us up, and we'll do our best to make this content the best Stadia content you could possibly hope to view or watch or listen to. But gentlemen, that's enough talk about 1K and the like. Let's now talk about what we've been playing, because we got hit with a bevy of games over the last couple of weeks and months. Too many to juggle, too many to play, some would say. We're probably only a few weeks away from finding out what our February pro games are. And I've barely touched any of the last ones, but let's throw it over to you, Tom, because I know you've gone back and played a game that probably a lot of people are sleeping on right now. So while your internet's holding up, do you want to tell us what you've been playing this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been playing a lot of a little game called Little Big Workshop. It's a type of game it's very much similar to like The Sims or Theme Hospital. It's very much sort of like a simulator type building game where you have to manage a workshop or sort of like your own little industry. You build things based, like starting off, you've got like recipes for creating wooden products, then you move to plastics, metals and so on, fabricating things. And it's just so chill. It's just so easy to do. The tutorial walks you literally straight into the game. So at the end of the tutorial, it transitions into the main part of the game. At the same time, you're also competing against other rival companies like you would do in most of these sim games, competing for your position within sort of like a leadership table. There's a nice little twist with it that your rivals are actually trying to sabotage you at the same time while you're playing it. So they send in spies inside, and you've got little mini games where you've got to try to find which of your workers is actually the spy, and you get rewarded with extra currency. But it is purely just a chill single player game, and I've been having a blast to the point that the achievements are rolling in, and I'm sitting there probably 7 or 8 hours down the line now, and I just want to play more. It's really, really just that much fun.
Yeah, that's one of those games that's on my watch list, because everything you've mentioned there, something different, something chill, that kind of management simulation game really does appeal to me. And like I think Richie, you said before, you can sink so many hours into those type of games without even realizing it. And it's got that very playful, overcooked vibe as well, with the character animations and the kind of overhead workshop design. But it's one that it came out and surprised us all. I think it didn't really get much fanfare. It may be a pro game soon. Who knows? Maybe that's why a lot of people haven't jumped on it. But I'm interested to check it out. So hopefully,
it's the case of the pro game. I think you've talked a lot, Chris, about especially indie titles like holding off on purchasing things because you almost expect every indie game that comes to the platform to end up in the pro bin. That's kind of one of the reasons why I looked at it and went, that looks like quite a lot of fun. It'll probably be a pro game in a couple of months.
Yeah.
And again, following on from a discussion we had last week, it is published by Handy Games as well. So not saying that some of their games have gone pro already, but...
And you bought it.
And I bought it.
So that's another...
and I'm now playing it.
So that's an almost guarantee for February, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it right here. But yeah, the biggest reason for me is we've just had so much to play. I've not really felt the need to go out and spend my own money because the Pro subscription alone and the other big AAA titles we've all got, I've been delving into. So I think I've flung another 20 or so hours into Valhalla this week. I think I'm just coming up on 60 hours now, maybe, Richie. So I don't know how far through the story you would be. However, I do a lot of the clean-up, mock-up stuff rather than just mainline the story. So I'm clearing out region by region.
You can tell how far through the story you are just by looking at the Alliance map. Basically, once you've completed all of them, you completed pretty much the story.
Right. So. Oh, I suppose, because it does it in chapters, doesn't it? Well, I think I've just started on Kent now. Got to make sure you say that right on a podcast. And I think I haven't done York yet, so there's that area up the top. But all the Midlands and off to I've just done the one with Wales and the Dragon King guy as well. So I've just finished that off. Quite an interesting twist. Kind of saw it coming, but nice little bit to the story. And the bit down in the southwest I've not touched. But in terms of the game itself, really getting into it now, really enjoying it. But I do have that itch to play the other big titles that came out. I've contemplated going back to Cyberpunk again, but I kind of want to just see Valhalla out now.
I would focus on one, otherwise you're just going to do bits on both and then you'll just fizzle out.
Exactly, but we've got plenty of time to play it. So I've been playing more Valhalla. Tom, you've been playing Little Big Workshop. Richie, you're probably the biggest Stadia gamer amongst us all. You finished Cyberpunk, you finished Valhalla. Yeah. What have you been playing this week?
I've been playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Get out.
Probably for the reasons you've actually just said. I've got between starting Assassin's Creed Valhalla and finishing Cyberpunk, there's probably about 160 to 180 hours worth of gaming in there of big open world titles, very in depth. I think I just kind of needed. I was thinking about buying. I did buy Immortals Phoenix Rising. That is probably still going to be my next game I'm jumping into. But when I started it earlier in this week, I just was not in the right mood to play, start something big. So I picked up my PlayStation 5 and I wonder how well Tony Hawk's runs on this. And it runs exactly the same as it ran on PS4. But I actually have an issue with PlayStation right now, because I played a lot on PS4. Then when I jumped in this week to play on PS5, my saves were there, perfect. And my PS4 is now up in the office, but my saves aren't syncing back to the PS4. Oof. So I have no idea why.
Syncing one way.
Yeah, it's syncing one way. But now when I've jumped back to the PS4, because it's in here because I don't need it downstairs anymore. And I thought, well, if I can give Remote Play a try and just use it as another way of place to play PlayStation games. But my games weren't synced at all. So I put probably about 15 hours into Tony Hawk's, and it's just not there on my PS4. And PS5 doesn't have a way that I can find of manually uploading the save to the cloud. It's all automatic.
I haven't even tried yet. If only it was all instant and in the cloud, eh? But we'll definitely be talking about more of that later on in this episode, because like I said, we've got a great show lined up for you all. But thank you for that, Richie. More Tony Hawk's action. It may come to Stadia one day when Activision pull the finger out and bring some more titles. I personally love Activision to just bring that whole bevy of kind of remakes across. I think they're quite evergreen at this point. If they've survived the last 2 decades, I don't see why things like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and the Tony Hawk's games couldn't make their way across and be kind of evergreen titles across any platform. So I'd love to see them on Stadia, because there's a lot of games in that kind of like collection of remakes that they've put their mind to. And the smaller titles as well, so I don't think it would take as much to port across. There's no real like ongoing live service required for them. They're very much complete, done and out games. So watch this space. But as we move on from that, then from the housekeeping, what we've been playing, let's do a massive shout out to one of our new patrons as well. We've got James has joined us this week over on patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia. Just like you can, if you want to throw us an extra little bit of support and watch our channel grow, we massively appreciate it, James. Thank you for your time, your energy and support. And of course, now you get great exclusive things like the post show, soon to be slightly changed, 5 days earlier than the general public. You get game sessions, exclusive chat with us. You can throw in your topics and suggestions for shows and future content as well. And more importantly, it puts a smile on our face, and it helps us grow and invest in better tech and equipment to make the channel better. So thank you very much, James. It's wholeheartedly appreciated from us all. No Recon Rituals, because there was barely any news last week. However, we need to get into this week, which you'll be glad to know is chock-a-block with specific Stadia stories. I joke, of course, it's very quiet this time of year, but we would not do a podcast without a particular section we like to call
the Super Sexy Special Stadia Story segment, aka
The News!
The News! And I'm amazed that actually got through this time, because my computer was just freaking out for about 5 minutes straight there.
As soon as I started to build up to throwing it over to you, I saw the look on your face and I thought, are you just going to freeze the second we throw it over to you now? But of course, yes, it is the news segment, and it's a bit thin on the ground, gents, this time of year. We know this anyway, but I think it appears everyone in the games industry is still kind of on their jollies. They're on their Christmas vacay still, and they haven't quite got back to it yet.
So they've probably been back at work for 1 week now, but that's probably, everyone knows the first week back at work after Christmas, you're actually catching up with what's going on. What did you guys do over Christmas? Sitting down at your desk going, what is my job again?
Yeah. It hurts.
So yeah, the first few weeks back, I wouldn't expect any huge announcement stuff. So
Okay.
However,
it's unfortunate for us.
It's unfortunate for us who has a Stadia-based podcast. However, we can talk, and we will talk, and we've got plenty of great topics to discuss. But we will touch on the bits of news anyway for your listening delight. First thing, we've noticed the upcoming game Road 96, which was showcased at the Game Awards, which I think at the time it basically had everyone on our Game Awards panel, Richie, was watching along. It had us all really intrigued, so I'm glad to hear that this news, because an interview over at VentureBeat with one of the developers has came out and told them that it's coming to Stadia. So Road 96...
Well, there's more news than that. It's not only is it coming to Stadia, it's partially funded by Google.
Yeah, which I think was the biggest surprise. So they announced it as a procedural road trip journey, and I'll just pull up a little bit about what the game actually is. So, summer 1996, today is the day you hit the road. Adventure, freedom, escape, run, flee the regime, try to survive. On this risky road trip to the border, you'll meet incredible characters and discover their intertwined stories and secrets in an ever-evolving adventure. But every mile opens up a choice to make. Your decisions will change your adventure, changing the people you meet, maybe even changing the world. There are thousands of roads across the Arthurian nation of Petria. Which one will you take? So it's a procedurally generated road trip adventure game, which sounds unique in its own right, but then it's got this really gorgeous art style, very akin to Telltale's Walking Dead, almost with a bit of Firewatch, if you've played that before. It's from DigixArt or DigixArt, I don't know how you would say the developer company. But yeah, like Richie alluded to there, in their interview, they pretty much say this is part funded by Stadia, or Google, we should say. And it's coming to Stadia. So, Tom, I think you went on our...
My favourite thing to do.
Not you. Google Hub. I didn't say any keywords there, did I? I didn't say any keywords. Either way.
Triggered.
What Head was talking about her. Over to you, though, Tom. I'd like to get your take on this because, of course, me and Richie talked about it a little bit as it was showcased at the Game Awards. What's your quick take on this one at first glance?
I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I think this is a game I could sit down and enjoy, and probably end up... depending on the length of the game, I could imagine myself almost sitting and just binging through the entire thing in one sort of weekend. I love the references, just watching through the trailer that they released at the Game Awards. I love the references to like the Tarantino-esque style heist that seems to be happening in the diner as well. I think this will be a really good game, and I love adventure games that give you that choice of defining sort of like your own path, your own story, really, rather than it just being entirely linear. Just having that branching path option, I just think really opens it up to sort of, a very sort of unique gameplay the way that you want it to be. Brilliant. I'm super excited for it. I'd love to see whether Google's involvement in the development of it or in the funding of it has any sort of benefit to Stadia, whether that has any sort of involvement with
these elements actually touches on in the article that say it's basically Google's only give us complete freedom. The only requirements is that it comes to Stadia and PC.
Right. Okay. Because my understanding would be perhaps that if it does come to Stadia, might we see crowd choice as part of it?
That would be pretty cool, actually. But these actually as well, talking about the gameplay. So when reading the article, basically it's almost set in a world that's similar to the United States after like the economy's collapsed and stuff. Almost as if basically it's described as if the United States went full on communist and then the economy collapsed and there's no jobs, no work, nothing. So the goal is effectively to get across the border. But I've lost my train of thought.
Escape to freedom across the border.
Yeah, that's it. There was actually apparently quite a bit of a roguelike element to it. So if you get caught by the police or die or whatever, then you start again as a completely new character. So the core cast of characters who you met throughout the world won't remember your character.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It does sound really intriguing. I do get really big Telltale vibes, but what you're saying there, Tom, about crowd choice, I've said a few times, I'd love to see the Telltale games make their way over to Stadia because I think they are a very unique style of game and a genre that, unfortunately, now Telltale have gone, we don't really get them type of games anymore. Just straight out, they were the only real people who dedicated to it. And for me, they're the style of games that they just have a different pace to them where you don't have to feel totally engaged in the content. They're quite relaxing to sit back and just make decisions and kind of wander. And they've got the element of exploration where you look for like puzzle clues within the environment. And it's not super fast paced like most games we play really are. And I think the crowd choice and decision making could play a massive, massive part in this game being really good.
With Telltale, I think there was two critical decisions that I think were quite poor. One, they stuck with their own engine for way too long, and it was buggy and problematic. And two, the release schedule on the games. If you think of like almost as if like you're watching a TV series that comes out every week, sometimes it can be quite annoying to actually wait the entire week before you see the next episode. With the Telltale games, sometimes you're waiting 6 months.
Yeah,
but there is a market for that type of game. We know that.
God,
I'm pretty sure we all three of us want those games.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I actually really, really do like the episodic nature of the Telltale games. But I like to binge it because they usually tend to be like 5 chapters long per season. So it's a nice thing to come in. Okay, I'll start the game on the Monday and I'll finish it on the Friday and just do 1 episode a night. But when you're waiting months between episodes, you lose interest in the story, and I think that's one of the problems I've always had.
Yeah, and I think the only other ones really who are doing it at the moment is Don't Nod, who did Life is Strange, and they've just had their new one, Tell Me Why. I think was released, but other than that, no one else really, other than like indie developers who obviously don't do it with the same cinematic style and art direction. But it's kind of a genre that I hope doesn't go away, and if anything, I'd like to see have a resurgence and come back. But the fact that they're now tapering in like the Telltale-esque gameplay with this kind of roguelike design of like, I love the idea of every time you die, that is the end for your character. They've been caught, they've been captured. You've got to restart, but your journey can take different paths based on your decisions. And the art style looks great. Very, very Firewatch vibes. If either of you two played Firewatch before,
I actually haven't. Beautiful. It's been on my radar for a long time, though.
It's beautiful. Very not too long, not too in depth, but in terms of just telling a great, beautiful story in like a sun-baked American forest, it's fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed Firewatch. It was a nice little palate cleanser between big titles. So look out for Road 96.
Oh, actually. Before we go further, I was just skimming through the article. Another thing about Stadia, we have some new features. We have a system where when you stream the game, you can let the audience make the choices.
So crowd choice then.
Crowd choice, yeah.
In that case, then I'm super hyped for that then, because I think that'll be something that within a sort of like an online community will be fantastic, particularly from a content creator's perspective. We've said several times over, being able to have those story-driven games but have user choice would be perfect for
community engagement, just
chat interaction, community interaction.
Certainly. Yeah. So then, as a wrap up on that game, then with Stadia part funding it, is there a chance this is Stadia exclusive for a short window, or a pro game? Do we think?
Well, part of this, well, the developer literally says that one of the requirements is it has to come to Stadia and PC.
But do we think that's going to be exclusive, like Guilt for a short while? Well, for a long while.
Well,
Guilt's way.
I think I don't know. It's possible it comes to Stadia as a console exclusive, but it's going to be on PC. So I'd expect to see it in something like Steam or the Epic Games Store or GOG or whatever.
Interesting. But we'll have to wait and find out anyway. The road is long, but we'll be waiting at the bus stop, hitchhiking to be picked up on the way. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Other news dropped this week is the game coming to Stadia known as Outriders has been delayed. Now, we know it wasn't coming to Stadia date anyway, but it has been pushed back until April 1st, 2021 on other respective platforms. Now, they did put out a tweet, very cyberpunk-esque, which don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing at this point, with one of those big banner statements of text on Twitter. And the statement basically read that it's almost not a dig at Cyberpunk in particular, but there was a few word choices in there that made it look as though they were like, we really care about the experience, and before we release it, we want you to decide for yourself. So they've announced they're going to do a demo to kind of get the game out there in people's hands, but also they won't be releasing it until it's finished. So then the extra time to fine tune, focus, and deliver a fantastic game at launch. Now, I think the three of us have been quite lukewarm on this game so far, just purely because they haven't really told us what it does. It looks like another Destiny clone as such from everything I've seen. Even the gameplay trailer, it looks fun. It looks like they're almost taking Gears of War, Destiny, merging it together. But any advances?
We haven't seen the unique hook that this game has that other games don't. No. So it looks just a little generic at the moment.
I feel like this is going to fall the way of Anthem, and I think it's just going to fall flat on its face. And I pity Square Enix for that, because I know they want to really get involved with, that sort of thing. They tried it with Avengers.
They did indeed. So, yeah, they've got it listed as Outriders as a co-op RPG shooter with brutal powers and intense action, deep RPG mechanics, a compelling story. That could be a crucial difference, I think, compared to some others. Set in a dark sci-fi world, players will become an outrider, a fallen pioneer from a forgotten past, reborn with devastating powers. Define your playstyle, level up your powers, and collect brutal guns and gear on an epic journey of survival. It's always the term gear that always gets me now when they talk about games, because that immediately makes me think of like grinding for loot and leveling up. And like you said there, there's only so many hours in the day, and unfortunately, I think I switch off now when talking about games like this, because I don't have the time in my life. I'm 60 hours into Valhalla. I haven't started Immortals properly yet. I haven't touched Watch Dogs Legion. I've got Jedi Fallen Order I want to play a game, which I've not touched. And that's on the cusp, on the horizon of all the new titles 2021 is throwing up. And this, it just looks like a generic mix match, like similar to Anthem. And I think unless it's got an amazing hook, or it gets 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 reviews, I'm kind of not interested in this at all.
I'm hoping Square have learned the lesson a bit from Avengers, where they've got this fantastic IP, so much storytelling power, but they eventually made a game that just falls a bit flat. And going back to gear, I always found the gear in Avengers basically pointless, because you're changing up so often. Pretty much after every mission, you're changing up most of your gear. Which kind of just makes it, when you're getting legendaries every 2 seconds, and nothing feels legendary, nothing feels important, nothing feels like it has any real weight to it. And then because the only real content, post-game content, is like the hives, which are just basically more of what you've already been playing.
Yeah.
That's where the trap of Avengers went into, because the game plays really well. We have generally had some great fun with it. But so I'm just hoping they've learned the lessons there. Maybe that is the source of the delay, to rework some things.
Well, it's actually interesting. Like, if you watch the gameplay trailer, like, it actually does look like a clean, sharp game. Like the HUD layout, the fighting mechanics. It's third person as well, which I'm always a big fan of. It gets good points from me on that point. It actually wouldn't be surprised if it runs very, very similar to the content Avengers actually has. Like, looking at the texture maps and the way the character moves, it does. I could very much just see it being, take a character from Avengers and drop them in this world, and it wouldn't be all too different. But without the IP of something massive like Avengers behind it, will it find the legs like Anthem clearly didn't to really survive?
I wonder if they're going for sort of like a feel of sort of like a mix-up of Gears of War meets Destiny, if they're going for that third-person approach, then with it being a shooter game as well. That'd be an interesting concept. But again, I feel like these sorts of games at the moment are sort of, they're do or die. They're either going to take off or they're going to just die very, very quickly. There's only so much space for, like you said, with all that time, there's only so much space for them.
Yeah, again, going back to Avengers, I think Avengers failed in some of the basic concepts of like how the genre should work. Like, gear didn't feel pointless, didn't feel at any point. There wasn't really actually that much in terms of strategy, in terms of when you're playing multiplayer against, if you're fighting bosses. It's just, you more like to have just 4 people doing their own thing who happen to be in the same level. These sort of things that kind of pull the game together. The fact that there's no like real, in Avengers, no real proper dungeons to work through, to chip away at.
Yeah.
So that's why I always felt it was a lot missing.
Yeah, the biggest wrap up for me is just if you were to say to the developers or whoever's interested in it, give me that like 30, 60-second elevator pitch, and then hit you with those same buzzwords that applies to every other game. They'd be like, oh, we've got loot, we've got weapon customization, we've got leveling up, we've got raids, we've got a hub system, a hub base where you can customize your gear and stuff, and you can get engrams and such. You can explore different planets and grind and repeat and do them on harder difficulties. And there's aliens and what you realise you've just hit. You've not really said anything. It's just word salad.
It's missing the why do I need to care about this stuff?
Yeah, the issue it's falling on is it's this flavour of the month type thing. Like it's here for a while and people are capitalising on it, and then it's just going to die again. Like we're going to move on once again.
I said in the run up to Avengers, and I still stand by it, Avengers leaned way too heavy on its IP to try and promote the game, rather than it needs to be a good game first. Then you put the IP on to bring the Avengers IP should have been what took it from like an 8 to a 9 rather than a 6 to a 7.
Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. But yeah, I do. Again, watching all the gameplay, I would enjoy playing this. I don't think that's not deniable at all. Looking at the gameplay and the mechanics and the world that they're building with the aliens, and if it does have a great single player story as well, a compelling story as they quote, fantastic. It's not doing enough to merit a slot on my dashboard of games, unfortunately, right now. And
I keep forgetting it exists until it comes up in the news, to be honest.
Yeah, unfortunately. So fingers crossed they can do something. But again, they've delayed it anyway. I presume a topic we should probably talk about is, will this delay allow Stadia to catch up, similar to Cyberpunk, or should we not put our eggs in that basket along the way? So do we think this will be out on Stadia April the 1st along with other consoles, gents, or do we think this may be pushed back a little bit further?
Not a chance.
I wouldn't expect it, especially just after Cyberpunk. If it is not a case of the reworking some of the game content or something, if it is literally its performance stuff, they're going to look at Cyberpunk and go, we can't do that. We absolutely can't. Because bear in mind, Cyberpunk got through on hype, so they actually made quite a lot of money on that game anyway. Where this game doesn't seem to have much hype around it. So if they repeat Cyberpunk and it comes out on PS4, Xbox One, and it doesn't work, that's a big hit that Square are going to take on this.
Okay. Follow-up question then. Do we think we'll get a demo on February the 25th alongside everybody else?
That is something that I think could happen.
Yeah.
Or more importantly, should happen.
Because obviously Stadia's been quite a champion of demos this past 6 months, obviously with the Immortals, Humankind and Pac-Man demos we got. They're kind of the only platform that's really actively promoted it as part of their layout plans. And it would be great if, we might not get the game date, but the demo surely should be ready, because the demo is essentially a vertical slice taken straight from the game. So there's not... I'd hope the game's finished to an extent where they can take a chunk of it to let distribute and let people play. But I guess we'll find out. February 25th, not too long to go.
The fact that they are still pushing a demo in February gives me hope that the game isn't as bad for performing as Cyberpunk.
Curious.
Cyberpunk, we have to remember, reviewers and stuff, things like IGN, didn't get their hands on it till very just before launch, and even then it was the PC version only.
Yeah.
Where if they're pushing the demo across all platforms, then it's more likely to be performing better.
Yeah, I think after the craziness that was Cyberpunk, I'm sure the industry as a whole is going to be a lot more scrutinous about games being held back, and I think demos might be a really good way of actually showcasing that actually our game is running. Like, here is a vertical slice example of the game running. So interesting to see that. But no, I'd love more demos to come out and come to Stadia, because again, if we all play the demo, all three of us, that gives them a great opportunity to get their hooks in us and actually showcase that Outriders is worth standing up and listening to, because you've played an hour or 2 hours of it, and did you enjoy it? So there's an option there for that as well.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Let us know in the comments down below, in the chat, tweet at us. If you are one of the people looking forward to Outriders, again, we don't want to throw shade or disrespect at it. It's just, to me, and by the sounds of it, all of us, it's just Anthem 2.0. Although we're still waiting on Anthem 2.0, aren't we? We joke about Anthem. I'm sure they said that EA were going to do a big full reboot and relaunch, and then they've been silent for about 6 months now.
I mean, honestly, Chris, surely we're waiting for FIFA still, right? We're still waiting for news from EA for FIFA. So
that's a great reminder there, Tom. Let's have a look, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Chris's FIFA roundup. How long FIFA 21 has been out on other platforms? We are now on 93 days at the time of recording, so that is over 3 months. FIFA 21 has been available on PlayStation, Xbox, and also next gen now. It's out on PS5 and Series X, so there goes the dreams of it coming to Stadia in line with those ports. 3 months in. How many games into the season are we, Richie? Anyway, we're about halfway now,
just
right?
looking. I think we might have just crossed over the halfway line. I'm just quickly bringing up the Premier League table.
Of course,
most teams are between 15 and 17 games, so around about the halfway mark as a season.
Hey, it's going to have to be.
So my argument
price.
is now half the lifespan of this game is already gone.
So I want it for less than half the price.
Well, I've said if it's over 30 quid, then it shouldn't. Just don't buy it at this point. Wait for the next one.
I hope the next one doesn't get delayed as that much as well. Either way, when do we categorise winter as being cut off for you two? When does winter end in Richie's life? March?
I'd say mid-March.
March 1st or March 31st?
Mid.
Oh, right, okay, right in the middle. Tom, how about yourself? When does winter end for you? Winter's already ended by the sounds of it. When does winter end for you, Tom?
I missed all of that.
Okay, the simple question, rounded it up. When does winter end for you? Is there a time delay? Can he see us?
I'm sorry. I missed it once again.
I've actually just Googled it, and winter officially ends on Saturday the 20th of March.
Why? Is that what, summer solstice, winter solstice kind of deal, or?
That's when Google decided.
Surely winter ends mid-Feb?
Well,
I thought the transition between...
conflicting data now.
No, cause I think a lot of people think that November is winter, where it's actually part of autumn.
Mind you, do you know what? December 21st is winter, the official start date of winter, so that makes sense. 3 months.
Yeah.
Ah. So, speaking of seasons then, has anyone played Ari and the Secret of the Seasons yet?
I played about an hour of it.
No.
The camera on that game is horrible. I don't know how to explain it. It moves very smoothly, but almost like when you move it, almost goes like a bit fish-eyed, and the zoom goes all over the place. It's just, again, I did jump into it, but I was like, no, I'm not vibing with this right now.
Not vibing with it right now. Interesting stuff. So we'll get an update on FIFA for you guys and all the other games coming to Stadia. But one of our final news stories of the week is we've had a leak via the Nintendo eShop. Thank you very much, Nintendo. An expansion for Immortals Phoenix Rising titled A New God is stated apparently for 21st of January 2021. So that's only 11 days from today, time of recording. I haven't even started the damn game yet. And here we are. It's getting its first DLC, A New God, which I think, Tom, you've probably played the most of it out of the three of us at this stage. I'm itching to get into this game. I really am. I need to power through Valhalla and then flip a coin on whether I bother going back to Cyberpunk or not now. Did you guys see Cyberpunk's apparently had an 80% drop off of its player base?
Really?
Since start. Yeah, there's a few articles going around during the week, which for a single player game, I guess it's not that much. If everyone's like put hours and hours into it, like most hyped up games, they play it insanely and then go, all right, I need a break from this now. I mean, to finish the story, do you move on kind of thing?
But that makes sense though, because games like Sekiro and Jedi Fallen Order, now that I've 100%ed them, I'm not going to go back and play them again. So that's expected, surely. And
Cyberpunk is shorter than The Witcher. I think they've said it's about 50 to 60 hours. I mean, actually, Richie, you finished it. How long would you say the campaign took you?
I think I clocked in total around about 60 to 70 hours.
Okay.
But I did do some side questing and stuff as well. So I reckon if you mainlined it, I reckon you're looking about 40 hours.
Yeah, so that would make sense. But again, I think CD Projekt Red have shown time and time again they can bring people back. Look at the Witcher had like what was it 200% boost in sales when the Netflix series came out, and then when they brought out all the DLC, it gets a boost. But then it just seems like an evergreen title, and I'm expecting Cyberpunk with all its problems probably will still be in our mind's eye for the next half a decade at least, with all its patches and fixes and updates.
I think critical thing for here is a lot of people have jumped into the game, seen as having bugs, and have jumped out probably to wait till the bugs are fixed.
Oh yeah, 100%. I know a couple of people.
You might find that the current concurrence numbers are quite low for the game. They may slowly pick up over the next few months.
It might just
after a single critical mass of player base, but I don't think a game like this needs it necessarily because it's not persistent online world. It's a single player game at the moment that you don't need a lot of people playing at the same time. The sales numbers are more important to CG Projekt Red than the player base right now.
Definitely.
Yes.
But then in terms of Immortals Phoenix Rising then, this could just be some clever marketing. Start the year off, get your first DLC expansion, remind people that this game came out the same day as Cyberpunk, and if you did plow all your hours into Cyberpunk, guess what? There's a fresh title that reviewed very, very well. And across social media, I'm seeing the more people play this, the more they just read. I've seen a few people even change it out for their Game of the Year decision. Now they've actually had time to play and sink into it. They said the comedy, the humour, the gameplay mechanics, and just the overall, I think the colour palette of the game is just nice and sunny. And I think people like playing games in a nice sunny environment. That's my big thing with Valhalla. I don't think I'm enjoying it as much as Odyssey, because Odyssey is just so fun to play when everything's like golden sun-baked and the sea's lush and blue and everything's bright and vibrant and green. I think it just set you in a better place than a dark, dull, grimy game set in the underworld. But excited for the DLC, gents, when you finally get around to it?
Yeah, I think I am.
No, I'm not, because I very rarely play any DLC in any game, so
really?
I'm just generally disinterested in DLC. Usually I find in a big game there's enough content there to satisfy me, then I want to move on to the next thing.
Right, I'm with you. My only concern for you, Chris, is saying like you know going through Valhalla and then jumping to Immortals is whether you're going to have too much of that Ubisoft sort of gameplay there, because it is very, very similar. Like I cannot emphasize that enough. It's just the skin and the humor on top of it that
probably why I couldn't get into it. Like at the moment, that's why I've been playing Tony Hawk's, because like I need a break from these big open world games.
Yeah. I might not. I have a really big feeling that I'm not going to get around to. I own Watch Dogs Legion. I don't think I'm going to get around to it until like the end of the year. There's a big unless there's like a big void maybe in the summer where nothing comes out. But yeah, Watch Dogs Legion, poor Watch Dogs, man. It's had a bad run from game 1 to Watch Dogs 2 to the third entry in the series. It's just been an IP that's been plagued with bad marketing choices and release dates. Because they're good games, they just and like
I don't expect to play Watch Dogs at all.
One day we'll do like a stream with all three of us looking back at Watch Dogs 1 in Chicago and just do like a retrospective take on a game an IP that could have been something greater than it ended up being. But alas, it's good to see Ubisoft churning out the content, and we know they have really well supported roadmaps. Funnily enough, I wouldn't be surprised as I finally get around to Immortals, they'll drop Valhalla DLC, and then I'll be back into Valhalla for even longer as well. It just never ends, never ends. I played Odyssey for like 150 hours, remember? So there's a long road to go yet in that world. Final news story of the week, though, gentlemen, is we've got a surprising announcement that Supercross, Monster Energy Supercross, the game 4, has been revealed as also coming to Stadia. We can thank Duncan, our friends over at Clyde with a Chance of Games, for this story. It's been listed for all platforms, rated. There's an announcement trailer that came out recently as well. Richie, you were surprised to find that this might be an annualized series now?
Yeah, the first game came out in 2018, so this will be 4 years in a row the game's dropped.
And obviously coming to Stadia, by the looks of it, probably day and date this time, as opposed to last time we got it a little bit after the fact. 4-player co-op, dirt bike, crazy action, sponsored by Monster, left, right and centre. Remember, the last game we spoke about, Immortals Phoenix Rising, was apparently changed from Gods and Monsters because of this game. Not this game, the sponsor of Monster Energy drink. Alas. Neither of us are going to check this out, right? March 11th? No?
I have no intention to. It's one of them games where it's probably a very good game if you're interested in the concept of it. I'm personally not. That's it, really. Yeah. I don't have anything more to say about it.
I'd play it for a laugh, but it's motocross isn't my scene, unfortunately. I'm not extremely enough.
If it was a pro game, there'd be a stream in there for us.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's what it boils down to. It's just not our kettle of fish. But as soon as it becomes a pro game and we can enjoy it with a bunch of other people for free, then fine, whatever, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And then that goes back to why the pro game system works so well, because we try and we taste different genres and game types that we otherwise wouldn't have even thought twice about. So, and then who knows, it may spark a new love for a particular genre. But yeah, if you're interested in Monster Cross and all things energy drinks, go check that game out. Comes out in March, available, coming to Stadia, hopefully day and date as well. We'll probably hear a little bit more about that from the Stadia team as we creep through the next couple of weeks. But gentlemen, that is it for the news. It brings us to our final talking point of this week's episode, and we wanted to spend a little bit of time really focusing on 2021, the year ahead, and the competition, the cloud competition, what it looks like in that ethereal arena that exists in the sky where we all fight it out for space of gaming. And obviously we've got Stadia, who'd have knew. We've got Amazon Luna, which has kind of just gone a bit quiet, I think, since the launch.
We haven't got Amazon Luna.
Well, we haven't got Amazon Luna. The US has Amazon Luna. We've got Microsoft xCloud, obviously still doing its thing, ticking away, adding games to Game Pass left, right and centre. We've got GeForce Now still, and we've got Shadow. We've got PlayStation Now / Remote Play, which is kind of a thing. And Nintendo just don't show any inclination. I suppose actually, I say that. I take that back. Nintendo have their random stream. You can purchase like Control or one or two select titles and stream it through a third party.
They're very much dabbling with the concept, and I think the Nintendo stuff seems to be a way of getting games that wouldn't perform well on the Switch rather than an actual cloud service.
Mm-hmm. Hey, it's a smart move. It's a smart move if you think about it.
It's a nice supplementary method of getting bigger titles to the Switch. Yes. I know people have been asking since the Switch launch for like a Switch Pro, which I still think would be a good idea. But hopefully if they do that, they don't do the same mistake they did with the Switch Lite, where it's not dockable in your current dock, which I think is just absolutely ludicrous for the core concept of the console.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so if we look at them individually, so we've got Stadia, obviously, expecting in 2021, in terms of big moves in the platform, I think now we're at a stable point where the marketing is starting to really hit its stride, albeit it's been quiet for the last two or so weeks. I think the games we know are coming, we theorised, I think, on our first episode of the year, gentlemen, but is there anything after you've had a couple of days to settle into the year and find your feet, we've all gone back to work ourselves, what big moves are you really expecting in the cloud gaming world to see from Stadia to kind of upset the competition and stay in that number one spot, or make a claim for that number one spot? What do we think? Anything?
That's a big question, I think. I think one thing that Stadia really needs at the moment is it needs an improvement in the player base, like the number of players. So it depends on how they get that, whether it's through a marketing perspective. I wonder whether it's going to be a big marketing push, because we're starting to hear the name Stadia getting mentioned, like the Cyberpunk adverts. I've seen it on TV. I've heard it on the radio. And we're starting to get that for other things as well. But
Cyberpunk potentially could have hurt Stadia a bit, actually, because although it does actually perform okay on Stadia, it does have issues, nowhere near as bad as the PS4 and Xbox One. When outlets like IGN are pretty much going Cyberpunk is a broken mess, don't touch it. And then Stadia, and maybe a footnote somewhere, it actually performs okay on Stadia, which then a lot of people going, oh, that's a terrible game, I'm not going to bother. And that's one of the games that Stadia, I think, we're hoping to drive interest to the platform. So there is a marketing push from Stadia that needs to happen there.
I don't think Cyberpunk's been detrimental. I think it's like any news is good news, and I think the fact Stadia has been spoke around in the same manner as Cyberpunk, I think is great. To a point, Richie, you mentioned IGN, which is funny. I listened to the IGN Beyond PlayStation podcast yesterday, and they had a guest on who, funny enough, when they were digging on Cyberpunk and saying how far they've gotten, the bugs and the crashes and yada yada yada, and the guest they had on the show actually says he bought it on Stadia to the surprise of all of the panel, and he was saying that he's not experienced any of the problems they have because it runs fine on Stadia, and you could almost tell all the other hosts wanted to make a joke or say it, and they had to almost like grit their teeth and say, yeah, we've heard great things about it running on Stadia, and there's all these people, ironically, who gave it shit for the last year, and now arguably it's the best place to play it without dropping money on a PC, which we've knew all along. But it was like, it totally caught me off guard just listening to my podcast, going about my day, doing usual business, and then out of the blue on this PlayStation podcast from the biggest games journalistic site in the world, the guest of all people, the guest they have on for the week, I can't remember his name, apologies, but yeah, just randomly reaching out and saying, actually, I played on Stadia, it plays great. It was like, ha! You didn't expect that. He snuck in as a guest on your show for a PlayStation podcast, and now he's dropping the truth.
Some big gaming podcasts that I really listen to almost daily in some cases. Sometimes when they mention Stadia, I just cringe, and it's like it's unbearable to listen to because they're talking about how Stadia is a flop and stuff, and it's like usually you know what you're talking about, but in this case, like you don't. Stadia works. Well, I've already talked that I think it needs to have a bit of a step up in terms of its performance to get closer to the PS5, Xbox Series X.
Yeah.
Or this probably needs to happen this year. Otherwise, it could potentially be left behind as part of last gen as more people make that transition. But yeah, I think that, again, I think it's the same things we've been talking about for a while. It needs to hit some of the big titles. We've already mentioned Activision. Things like Fortnite are still going strong. It needs stuff like that. Overwatch still going strong. Some of these big games that just
what the team should be doing is they should be, and I hate to say this considering Amazon Luna is a direct competitor, but they need to be opening up Twitch. They need to be opening up YouTube and finding what the most streamed games are of the the top 10 stream games, and they need to be trying to set up relationships and business deals with those. For example, Rust is now once again really big on Twitch at the moment for some strange reason. And a game like that, we're getting Ark. Rust is essentially Ark, just without the dinosaurs. Like those are the kinds of things that you should be. And even the devs from Facepunch have turned around and said, we are very open to getting the game on Stadia. Yeah. But we've not heard anything else since that. So that's the kind of thing that they should really be capitalizing on, and I'm hoping that they are behind the scenes.
I think the one thing that needs to happen is not necessarily on Stadia's end is crossplay to just be ubiquitous.
Yes,
Because then with online games, take something like Overwatch for example. If all your friends play on PlayStation and you want to play on Stadia, but you can't, if you get on Stadia, you can't play with your friends. You're not getting on Stadia. Yeah, that's a problem for Stadia. It's not a problem for PlayStation because they have a huge install base. It's a problem for Stadia because they're trying to get a huge install base. So that's really important that they need to push, even if it is almost helping fund the development of the crossplay for these developers.
Yeah, really is.
So unfortunately, Stadia might be the one who has to fork out the money to force this to be, because the developers, they don't really care where you play. Let's be fair. They just want you playing their game.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah. There's someone actually spoke to me who's not got Stadia this week, and they were like really impressed with the rundown I gave them about like no downloads, no updates. That was like across all devices. That was like music to their ears. But when it came to can I play will my saves carry across? It was like, it's developer specific. There's certain games, yes, it works for. Ubisoft are obviously fantastic with that with the new Ubisoft Connect. That's a lot of games that suddenly get it just bang like that. But yeah, when it comes down to specific titles, like you said, Richie, it does leave a lot to be desired, especially when the bulk of the player base is inevitably going to be on PlayStation and Xbox. But games are key. And I remember that guy's name was Ray Apollo, who was on the podcast Beyond. So shout out to Ray Apollo as well.
Yeah, I think saves. I care less about saves than being able to play with people on other platforms, because I'm unlikely to buy the game on multiple platforms and bounce between them. But being able to play with other people on different platforms, I think, is important, especially as you get the more different platforms that come into the industry. So we've got Stadia, we've got Luna, we've got Microsoft, we've got PlayStation, we've got PC, we've got Nintendo. There's 6 big players in the industry now. That's diluting down each of their potential player bases, and they need to be able to talk. Otherwise, big online games, they're just going to find the player base threadbare. And it's a shame.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely going to evolve, I think, over the course of the year. Back to what you were saying, Tom, about titles. I'd like to sit here at the beginning of 2022 and look back on a year in Stadia and see that we did have games like Fall Guys, games like Among Us, actually like these massive cultural significant games that have just kind of taken the whole world by storm, that have like leaked into all different avenues, and have them for us to play like quite easy. Like Among Us, come on, it's a Flash game, right? That could be part of Stadia in no time at all, in theory.
It's already on PC. I don't think it'd be cost that much for Stadia to get it over there and just throw it in as a pro game. There you go. If you're pro, you get it for free. Done.
And yeah, so like Tom, who's now returned to us at the turn of the tide. Can he hear us though? It's hard to tell with his expression. Tom, are you there, Tom? Tom? He kind of moves, but I'm guessing audio's delayed, Richie?
I don't know.
Because he's moving, he's blinking, but he's just he just has to nod along.
Wave if you can hear us, Tom.
Wave, Tom, if you can hear us. I feel sorry for him now.
Yeah.
I feel like he's like
I feel
trapped
sorry for
in
the
this.
audio listeners wondering what the hell we're going on about.
Yeah, for audio listeners, Tom's having internet issues, it would appear, today, and he's moving, he's alive, we know he's healthy and well, but he can't and doesn't respond to anything we say, which makes me think he can see us, he can't see us. Yeah. He's getting his phone, which means he might be able to text us. Right now. Although he's just raised an eyebrow, so can he hear us now? What is happening? What is happening in your world?
I hear you now. I have no idea. This is going to need a full troubleshoot, like diagnostic after this, because I have never experienced this before.
It's very peculiar.
This is an episode for me, guys.
It's very peculiar because we get your visual, but we don't get audio come through for you, which I don't think has ever happened. That one is working, the other isn't.
No, and for me, it's the other way around. Like, it's completely locking up from from what I see. You guys just stop, and the audio trickles through. It's at such a slow rate, and then all of a sudden it'll just be like.
You get your Google Mesh system set up, because that seems to fix my issues, no problems.
Well, the Mesh is up and running, but I feel like it's going to need some troubleshooting. I wonder if it's something that I've done downstairs that's botching it. So
it's probably I've been having issues all week as well. But this isn't the time for troubleshooting and this and that. This is a podcast we're still doing. So let's focus. We were talking on Among Us and we were talking Fall Guys. Tom, being on Stadia by the end of the year would be a great get for party games and big titles that everyone knows. But let's switch our attention, gentlemen, to the next player in the cloud arena, which is Amazon Luna. Like I said at the top of the topic, they've been really quiet since their initial launch, surprisingly enough. And I'm guessing some point this year they're going to go global rollout to way more countries. I'm hoping that we're able to test it out in the first half of the year. I would wager. But it's hard to tell with the beta and that only be in the States.
Semi-closed beta over in the US, so they're very much data gathering. I think because it's a beta, they probably don't particularly care about the rest of the world right now. They just want to see it. Is it working?
Yeah.
And then they'll probably think about what happens next as they're getting the data. They'll have a plan. I'd imagine when it's rolled out properly, we'll get it. like day and date with the US. But at the moment, they probably just don't particularly care about the UK until it's out of beta.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. But
so my guess for Amazon Luna would be this year is we would see probably some more channels added to the beta, if not with launch. So I'm no doubt probably expecting an EA Play style channel where you get EA's games on it. They'll probably reach out. It's a weird one now because then you think, we would expect maybe like a Bethesda channel because they have like a big catalogue of games. But then now with the Microsoft deal, that becomes a little bit more different. And then this for me is where it gets a bit funny with Amazon Luna, because if they're intending to have channels, how many publishers have enough to have a channel dedicated to just themselves? And how does that affect their price structure? So we know Ubisoft is like around the $15 mark. But then how does that transcend to a smaller developer who may only has a handful of titles that are optimized for that platform? So as we've seen with Ubisoft and Stadia, that you're getting a couple of older titles, but you're not getting the whole library that's available on PC. So then you're paying the same subscription, but you're not getting your money's worth almost. So I think they need some clarity and some roadmap around what they're going to bring out to compete.
Critical thought on Luna could be the channel system, because a lot of publishers might not have any interest in it at all. They might just want you to buy games individually. That's it.
It depends what the appeal is in terms of on the business end, in terms of like the payback for the developers, for the publishers, and so on. Because at the end of the day, it's money, money, money. That's what they want. And if the channel, like you say, doesn't work for them, then they're not going to sign that contract. They're not going to get involved.
Yeah. It's also sometimes we talk about publishers making decisions. This individual developers might go, well, if you bundle us in with them, our relatively small title, any sort of like hype behind that our launch is going to just get washed under as just part of this channel, as another thing that's come to this channel, rather than having our moment.
It's true.
Yeah,
very, very true.
But
so Ubisoft are actually doing something quite innovative with like allowing the channel system in Ubisoft Plus and like EA with EA Play and stuff. But I don't know. There's probably question marks over with a lot of developers. Like how a lot of developers seemingly like Activision seemingly are still sitting back and watching what's happening with Stadia, as seemingly EA are doing a bit.
Yeah.
They might be doing the same with Amazon Luna for different reasons.
We're also still waiting for that THQ Nordic channel.
Oh, yes.
Oh, God, that channel would be... The value for money and that would be phenomenal.
It would be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely would.
It's probably one of the games I wouldn't be interested in playing.
It's interesting. It's interesting that we always talk about Ubisoft and we talk about EA, but we never really touch on that THQ Nordic sort of like the massive like Embracer group, just sort of huge, like thousands of games essentially now.
They got thousands of developers, never mind.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like that's surely like that would probably be the most value for money.
Yeah. It's almost like all it's all those like TV subscription models. You've got all like the top tier TV like Amazon Prime, Netflix and such, and then you start to see smaller ones creep into it with like they've got more content, but it's of a lesser standard almost. But like again, when you're talking value for money and hours, like content per hour, it's undeniably there. And again, I think I'd love to see both Amazon and Stadia get more on this kind of PC focused thing. I'd love to see a PC channel, or for Stadia specifically, more like RTS style games. Like I'd love to see the Warhammer titles, the Total War and stuff come across. We know Sega have got Humankind due out in the next couple of months. Just those like different styles that cloud gaming can really, really help with the simulation aspect of games. That does take up a lot of processing power.
Give me Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yes, not the new ones, the OG ones. Or like I've said on Twitter, Jurassic World Evolution, Planet Coaster, those type of mouse and keyboard
Theme
games.
Hospital.
Give me them. I'd love to play them on the move and such. But yeah, so it's an interesting one for Amazon Luna. We're probably going to hear, no doubt, a little bit more as the year trickles over. I'd be interested to see if they do anything at CES this year, which is the Consumer Electronics Showcase, which happens usually in Vegas every January, February it might be. Because obviously this is the first full year we've really going into knowing that COVID lockdown is going to impact the whole world and these events. And they've all had a bit of a kind of test the water scenario over the last 10 months. Now, though, we're getting like almost round to like round 2 of these things, and GDC is inevitably in. Is it usually March?
Sorry, quick correction. CES starts the day this episode comes out.
Oh, Tomorrow?
Yeah, Monday the 11th of January.
I thought it was January initially. As soon as I said it, I was like, nah, it's February.
Yeah. It is being held in South Korea this year.
Where it's safe currently.
Where it is safer. Safer. We should say. Definitely not out of this yet. Definitely not out of this yet. But so yeah, GDC as well. GDC.
March, right?
Is that March time? Yeah, March, I think.
Because that's GDC last year was when we started every episode of the podcast we did was like, this is cancelled, this has been suspended, this has been put on hold indefinitely, right, Richie? There's a throwback. But yeah, so for all those things, that Amazon Luna, you don't know what the tech companies have got planned. They may do things themselves. But big things from Luna, no doubt, an actual full official launch to combat Stadia to some degree, which I do honestly feel is picking up a good bit of traction as we go into 2021. So here we go. The things are really heating up. And we couldn't say things are heating up, I think, without mentioning Microsoft and xCloud, because they've kind of done the opposite to everybody else, where we knew xCloud was a thing, but now they folded it into Game Pass. When we talk about value for money going into 2021, this is kind of the biggest player, arguably amongst all of them, for cloud gaming. It's definitely not the best running, in my opinion, just based on the examples that I've tested out on my phone and my PC and such. But in terms of the games, with that entire catalogue that Game Pass brings with it of big AAA titles, Xbox this year will have some exclusive. They've got Bright Memory Infinite, they've got Everwild, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, Fable, Stalker 2, Scorn, The Medium, and a bunch of other smaller titles, which inevitably will all be coming day one with Game Pass for free. That's a lot of games.
Bethesda for future.
Yeah, and that's
Bethesda
not even
will
mentioning
be making Microsoft exclusive games in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I believe they've also said that all the Bethesda games are coming to Game Pass as well, which then in turn makes xCloud, which was included in Game Pass Ultimate. That's the best catalogue of games compared to all the others combined, right? Surely. And they've got EA Play.
Elder Scrolls 6 as just part of your subscription that you already pay.
Yeah. I think if when we go back to that discussion that we were talking about with Luna with this value for money, I think it's undeniable that at the moment you're probably going to get your best bang for your buck in terms of the games you get on xCloud compared to any other platform. But like you said, it does come with the caveat that the performance is not top tier, but it's still damn good. Plus, obviously, if you are a console owner or a PC owner, then you benefit in so many other ways too.
I trust Microsoft to get it there eventually, though, because Microsoft are a massive tech giant.
Oh, yeah.
They very much are capable of doing that.
Yeah. Plus, they don't have that stigma of everyone going, Google are just going to cancel it and you're going to lose all your games. Like, I'd imagine at this point, if you buy your game on Microsoft, you're quite confident they're still going to be here in 5 years.
Yeah.
And if the performance in xCloud isn't up to where you'd like it to be, if you're into the Xbox ecosystem, you're probably okay with that for now, because you're probably at the moment seeing it as something supplementing your experience rather than the experience.
Yeah. And I mean,
maybe time it might be different.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, and I was just going to say there that in the sense that me and Richie are really big in games like JRPGs. I was reading an interview very recently where somebody from Microsoft came out and said that they are looking at getting, and they've spoken to Square Enix on this, and they've agreed that they are going to get all of the back catalogue of like Final Fantasy games onto Game Pass as well, onto xCloud too. And I think that's a huge step to being able to like pull in like a bigger player base too, because you're arguably picking up a huge Japanese audience as well. And at this point, we're still waiting for Stadia to launch in a country like Japan, into the Far East, into that sort of like big Eastern Asian gaming center as well. There, being able to pick up a big Japanese developer, a Japanese publisher with a huge back catalog again is massive news. It's massive.
Yeah, so exciting things for Microsoft. And again, we know they have the money. They showcased that with the Bethesda purchase last year. Will they spend as much this year? My guess is their fiscal year results that drop in April might not suggest they're going to splash the cash as much. But let's see. So the wee thing is starting this year off. We know we're going to see some big moves from all of these. I would imagine Google have got to acquire another studio or two to even consider competing in the years to come. Luna, they've obviously got Amazon Studios, which make games, put them out, and then scrap them before they go public. So we don't really know what's going to happen on that. I know, sorry, harsh dig there. But we can jest while we're on top. We can jest because at the moment...
reality. You only describe what happened.
Yeah, that is true. But the final two we'll look at before we wrap up this show for this week is we've got GeForce Now, which, Richie, you've been a big advocate of just saying it's not a cloud streaming platform. It's more of a supplement to your existing library.
Here's the status of GeForce Now at the moment. So these are free version and you get standard access and you're limited to 1 hour of play, which is, for me, not worth bothering with. No. Like, literally not worth looking
Waiting
at
in a queue to play a game.
Yeah. The Founders for 6 months is $24.95. So it gives you priority access, not guaranteed access, priority access, extended session length. So again, not unlimited. You still can't play any month. And the only actual one that I don't have a caveat to is RTX on. That's good. I can't complain about that.
Yeah, ray tracing is obviously a huge thing.
But I'm sorry, until they get rid of queuing, until they get rid of limited session length, especially on the paid variant of it, I have zero interest in this utility. Bear in mind, I have to buy the games elsewhere anyway to be able to use this utility.
Yeah, so, I think the big lure for GeForce Now is for somebody who's got a large Steam library, who's collected thousands of games from Humble Bundles and from Steam sales and so on. And just having the portability of it more than anything.
If you're someone who is a big PC gamer and you want to be able to play your PC games on the go, say if you travel a lot for work or something and you just want to throw in a cheap Chromebook or something into your suitcase as you travel, probably some value for you there. I don't think there's much for most people right now. I think there is better solutions.
To be fair, is there anything they can really do this year other than just more marketing? Like, because they don't put games out themselves, they're just a supplement to it. When you say what do we expect from GeForce Now in comparison to Stadia and Luna, they don't make their own games.
It's infrastructure they need to work on, because infrastructure is the two key things they need to get rid of is queuing and limited session length.
Yeah,
they're things that need to be done before I really even consider it as any slightly worthwhile.
Yeah, from the stuff I looked at, it was just like the
interface.
That
will only come from getting more servers and increasing infrastructure.
Exactly, and I guess moving on to like the final one is Shadow, which I've not even paid any attention to whatsoever. It's just exactly the same, right? Is it Shadow Cloud Boost Gaming or something?
Shadow is essentially, imagine you've got sort of like a library of very high-end gaming computers, like PCs already on. Shadow is a service that allows you to remote access one of them and be able to play, again, like GeForce Now, and like you said, any of the games that you currently own. So the only difference is that GeForce Now is very limited to specific libraries, where Shadow, I believe, has like a wider selection of games, and that could extend to things like playing World of Warcraft. It could be League of Legends and things like that as well. So if you just don't have the capability of being able to play those through GeForce Now, Shadow is arguably a very good service, but again, it's run by a company that I think, from an infrastructure perspective, doesn't have anywhere near as much clout as some of these other competitors. So must admit, again, it is one of these services that I'm particularly not that experienced with, but it is marketed very much for high-end gaming compared to casual gaming and so on. It's very much targeted to the hardcore gamer, which I find interesting.
I don't think Shadow doesn't seem to be advertised that much. I think it's more of one of the things where, as long as they're in profit, I think they'll be happy and they will grow slowly over time.
Yeah, rather than trying a YouTube channel for them. They're just trying to get a trailer for it. There was like barely, other than the website, there wasn't much there.
Yeah. There's an interesting tour of the facility on the Linus Tech Tips channel. It's worth watching if you're interested in Shadow.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me to summarise GeForce Now and Shadow and any other kind of cloud gaming supplement that's coming about to kind of compete with the likes of Stadia and Luna and xCloud, for me, was they market it very much at keep your own Steam library. If you bought anything on GOG, play it. And as someone who doesn't have a big Steam library and has never bought anything on GOG, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not... And how many people now are like all the younger generation coming through have just like they've just got their first job and they're 18 for the first time, they get their paycheck and they don't have a big library because they're kids. They they've never had, like, again, you're talking about gamers who've got a PC library and nostalgia of like 30 years worth of buying things. I've been primarily a console gamer, just like the millions of other Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo players. This, like, when you say it's a top-end PC in the cloud, I get it, but for me, the reason I prefer Stadia and even xCloud and Luna is because I don't want to deal with that whole back catalogue. I don't want to have to click through and find my old games and boot them up within a separate window on my PC. Like, that's not how I want a game. And for me, it's great if you've got the library.
At the moment, it's garbage. The Steam library at the moment, absolute garbage. It's impossible to find anything. It's an absolute mess.
But this is where they get loads of positivity, but as someone who doesn't have that library, like, that's like their biggest thing they both push is bring your existing library over, and I don't have one, so it loses a big footing in regards of someone like me. So yeah, that's them.
That's true.
Anything else for the two of the cloud streaming supplements then?
Should we touch on the PlayStation offerings a bit as well?
I mean, yeah, PlayStation, Nintendo, they'll be doing their thing.
I'm hoping the PS5. I haven't got PS now on PS5. I'm hoping it's a lot better than PS4. But what I've been finding as I've been trying to set up remote play between my office PS4 and my downstairs PS5 is the networking on the PS4 is absolute garbage. I bet I'm getting 30 megabits per second. So in the past, when I thought PS Now was a terrible service, apart from the downloading part of the game, which actually makes it that you just download the games really using PS Now, might be just due to the hardware of the PS4.
Could be.
So I'm tempted to open up a PS Now subscription on my PS5 and see if it performs any better.
Right.
But actually, remote play. Unfortunately, remote play. If you're using your PS4 to play something on your PS5, it works. You shouldn't do it. You get a massive drop in quality just because you're limited to what the network card in the PS4 can handle.
Yeah, I mean, the PS4 network card, just pulling up a quick list of specs, it does only run on 2.4 gigahertz. So particularly if you're running it on Wi-Fi, it doesn't have a stable enough connection to support, a large width of transmission. Yeah. So there is potentially a limitation there because of that. So they might have just been hamstringing themselves with their own hardware, really.
Yeah, but there again, the PS cloud gaming came into being after the PS4.
Yes.
So it wasn't planned to do that.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Well, maybe I am tempted to look at the PS Now and PS5, see if it is any better.
Again, I think we can go the discussion we had before about exclusives. Again, Sony clearly, like historically, have the best exclusives available. We've touched on that countless times over the past 68 episodes. And yeah, I mean, if they can get it up and off the ground and it works well, then they may very well have a good case to put there, particularly with the new PS Plus collection. What's it called?
Yeah, collection.
Yeah, the PS Plus collection. Looking at that sort of availability, that could be brilliant for them if they can get PS Now working properly.
As well, to add on to that, the PS5 has storage issues because of this tiny SSD in there. PS Now could be a way of supplementing the library.
I should also go dropping back to talking about Shadow before. Actually, that's another limitation of Shadow as well. Is that when you pay for the service, you have sort of like the computer, but you still have to install the games. You still have to download the games onto Shadow. And again, you are paying for a computer that only has X amount of storage, whereas Stadia is unlimited.
Yeah.
Interesting. There's all pros and cons.
Worth considering.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm very excited to see what PlayStation do, being a PlayStation fan. There's always been rumours that they're going to amalgamate PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus together. Everyone thought they were going to do it with the launch of the PS5. That didn't happen. They just kind of kept things the same. But then again, when you're on top, why rock the boat, right? If you're the biggest selling console manufacturer out there, with arguably the best exclusives. I mean, not even arguably, let's face it. They've won Game of the Year for the last 4 years in a row for them. So, yeah, go get them, Sony. But yeah, that brings us to a conclusion on our future of cloud gaming in the region, the arena that is 2021. And all the exciting things that we're going to see, hopefully rolled out. Who'd have thought, gentlemen, that in a week with such little news, we could drag the show out to 1 hour, 20 minutes already? That just goes to show that we are confident in Stadia. We can talk about it till the cows come home. But that brings us to a close for episode 68 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, watching, listening on any platform you choose to do so. Remember, we are on the road to 1K, so we would massively appreciate it if you could like the video or give us a review on podcasting platforms. Share it with your friends and really get the word out that if they're interested in Stadia, if they got a free Pro controller over the Christmas period, let them know that we bring you a weekly Stadia podcast wrapping up all the gaming and Stadia news for your listening and viewing pleasure with three lovely faces you can watch if you wish to on YouTube.
Who's mostly buffering.
Who's mostly buffering, yeah. You've got one of them buffer faces, Tom. But that brings us to a wrap.
Swirling on your face.
That brings us to a wrap. Join us next week, of course, for episode number 69, where we'll try not to do childish grins and react to the title episode. We probably will. That guy down there most likely will. But yes, thank you for sticking with us to episode 68. Don't forget, if you want to subscribe and follow us a little bit, give us a little bit extra, patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia, and you will get the post show, which we're about to go record now, a little bit early, 5 days early. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. My name's been Chris.
I've been going to go fix my internet issues.
And I'm just still Richie.
Still Richie. After all these years, still Richie. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a good week. Game on. Bye.
Bye.